All right. Welcome, everybody, to LinkedIn Learning Office Hours. We are live streaming here, and I see people starting to come in here. Rami, welcome. Nice to see you. I don't know where you're calling from in here or participating from, but I'm a parent looking for some insights. Great. And what's true about this, it's all about teaching your children creativity. But in the meantime, it's not going to be surprising to you that you'll pick up a few tips too. I think that's all part of the deal. Here we have another guest. Thank you. I'm not even going to try to pronounce her name. I love your name, Chin Manedo. Wow. Let me guess. Do you have a nickname? Chi. Okay. And we have good. Looks like a lot of people from different parts of the world. That is fantastic. I want to thank those of you that were able to join me last week, where I was live streaming from Dubai. I had a trip there to attend a conference, and it was a fantastic experience. But the live stream was a challenge because I was in a high density area at the World Expo with noise all around me, and I was literally live streaming from my phone, and you all hung in there, and I appreciate that. There's Susan Maggard. Susan, how are you? Former student, colleague, and nice of you to join. Alexandra, welcome. It's good to see you. Thank you. Let's go ahead and get started here. This is really a good opportunity to think about your own personal life and the world of creativity. As you know, I have spent a great deal of time in my career teaching creativity, practicing it, both at the university level, but also to many corporate clients around the world. Some of you are on the call today on the live stream. And a very common question for people is to come up and say to me, "Hey, Drew, this is great, but can this be applied at home? Could I teach this to my children? How would you do it?" And eventually I got that question so many times, I started to look into it and really think through, what would it take? Can it be taught to children? And I started to get very, very interested in that topic. Um, it's something I've had a lot of experience with now. I think I have a picture here. This is a picture of me with a group of kids from here in the Cincinnati area. This is Madison City Schools, not far from where I live. And these are third, fourth, and fifth graders, or was it fourth, fifth, and sixth? I think it was fourth, fifth, and sixth. And they were so inspiring, so often, so capable, I should say. Just an awesome group of young ladies. And this is part of a program that I participated in called Innovation Girls, which is a great organization you should check out. Look it up in Google, innovationgirls.com, and you'll find out about this organization that helps young women, young ladies, learn to be creative at a very formative point of their lives as a way to boost their confidence as well as their creative output. And children can learn this. There's no doubt about it. An even more interesting example was when I taught creativity to kids with Down syndrome, and that was really a unique experience. So I'm going to take my experience of learning creativity, teaching it to kids at different age levels as well as adults. I've had the opportunity now to teach this to kids in high school as well. So I've got a pretty broad range. I've also been able to compare notes with my colleagues like Jacob Goldenberg and the folks at SIT in Israel and what they've done to teach creativity. So we're sneaking up on this. And the advice I have for you here is what you can do as a parent starting today to help your child be a more creative person, live a more creative life. And again, creativity, when I say creativity, I'm not talking about just, they're going to be good at art or music. We're not talking about that. It's the creativity of the mind, the ability to generate innovative ideas in any situation, You wouldn't be on this live stream if you didn't believe that was important. Does it make sense to learn creativity? Absolutely. You know it. You want your kids to have it, and I applaud you for it. All right, well, let's get into the topic and start with this basic question. If you're going to teach your kids creativity, you need to know what it is. So, here's the working definition that we're going to use for creativity. And I'm going to show you some examples and then start giving you some teaching lessons, teaching approaches that you can use day in and day out. Creativity, I define it as the sudden collision of two previously unrelated themes or things. It's taking any two random things and you jam them together and make them fuse, so to speak. And when you do that, you're going to end up with a creative thing. If now, whether it's useful or not, that's a different story. So it's the sudden collision of two previously unrelated themes or things, items, elements, components. And so that's the starting point. Now, there's a little bit more to it than that, because just creating something that's mashed together has to also be useful. So you could extend this just a little bit more for your purposes, for our purposes today, and say, hey, creativity is just mashing two things together and making it useful. That's what you tell your kid. And here are some examples of that. I just picked these off. I've seen these items in stores. This is at the top here, a baby's pacifier. And it's been mashed together with a mustache. Parents that are having too much fun with their kids, right? Making their babies look like grown men with mustaches. But do you see how the mashup has happened here? Baby pacifier, mustache, fuse it together, and it's a funny look here on the mom's face when she walks in and sees her little baby has this mustache all of a sudden. It's a practical joke. It is cute, and I've seen this embodiment in other ways too, other things you can put on the pacifier. And in fact, you can put on some very useful things on a pacifier, like a baby monitor, a temperature monitor. Mash that up with a baby's pacifier, and then you have some really, really interesting creative ideas. Below is an umbrella. I'm a big fan of umbrellas. Don't ask me why. I just love umbrellas for some reason. There are a lot of unique and innovative umbrellas in the world, and this one is a mashup of a crab that now has taken on the look with the inside the umbrella. You know, umbrellas have been around for thousands of years. The ancient Egyptians have used them, and there are something like 3,000 patents filed every year about umbrellas. And I can almost guess that most of those are taking an umbrella and mashing it up with some other element to create some new innovation. Your kid can do that. And the theme here is getting your kid to realize that it's about mashups, unrelated things, and just taking them together and then making it useful. Now, that said, in my teaching of kids, I will tell you that there's a certain way I go about it that I'm going to recommend to you. And by the way, feel free to ask questions in the comments. We're monitoring those, and I'll be sure to answer them. Now, if it sometimes helps if you put the letter Q : in front of it, just so I can visually see it here. I'm tracking multiple things on the screen. So here's some of the other important steps for you to think about as you're teaching your kid creativity. First of all, you need to make sure they understand the difference between problems and solutions. So how do you do that? Well, sit down and talk to them about it. You have the talk. You say, look, when they're struggling with something, see if they can really identify which is the problem here and which is the solution. So the problem might be, I need to brush my teeth. And what is the solution to that? A toothbrush. Problem, solution. I need to sign this piece of paper. Problem, the solution is a pen. Make that distinction clear, because as you're going to see in a minute, there's a key aspect of this that if they understand and embrace, they are going to be creative for the rest of their lives. And here's the twist. Most people think that to be creative, including kids, you've got to identify some problem and then invent some solution to it. Hey, and that's fine. I think what happens to kids is they get very enamored with things like patents, and they hear stories about some inventor or even some kid that invented something because they were in the kitchen one day, they saw their mom burn their hand, and they thought, oh, I'm going to invent a new thing that'll make sure mom doesn't burn her hand anymore. So they've become conditioned to think that the only way to be creative is to start with a problem to solution. And guess what? There's another direction here, that you need to teach your child that there are actually two directions to this creativity process. Yes, you can go from a problem and work out a solution to it, but as you're going to see in a minute, you want them to realize that there is also a much more creative way to start with a solution and then work backwards to a problem that it solves. And as it turns out, humans, especially kids, are very good at that. Let me show you how to deal with that to your kids, how to present that to your kids. And the other thing I'm going to show you at the end here is how to practice creativity habits. I'm going to give you some pointers to ask your kid to start doing to lead a more creative life. These are what I call general habits of creative people, of just a short list of them. Okay, what's the difference between a problem and solution? Toothbrush, brushing your teeth, signing a paper, using a pen. Problem to solution. So here's the way I sometimes do it. I use these slides in teaching kids with Down syndrome. So they're really at a point where I'm trying to get that as clear and understandable, but they work well. I've used these on many other audiences as well. I need to climb on the roof. Imagine the solution. And so most kids will immediately look and say, okay, well, you need a ladder. Good. And they have seen ladders. They know what a ladder is. They've seen it in cartoons, and they have this fixed image of what a ladder does to get up on things. So you start here. I need to climb on the roof. What is the solution? Imagine the solution. It's a ladder. Now, turn it around with them and say, okay, I have a ladder. What can I use it for? And so they're going to look at you like, well, you'd use it to do things like climb on the roof. And you say to them, okay, what else? What else could you use it for? So see if you can push them to extend the normal use of something beyond just what it's normally used for. That's a baby step in creative thinking. Take what they normally associate an item in terms of its function, and now having them move it to other domains and get it used there. That's a baby step. Now let's make it a little more difficult, a little more tricky. Now you say to them, okay, I have a ladder, but it works only sideways. What can it be used for? I have a ladder, but it works only sideways. And what you're doing is you're tightening down the constraints a little bit. You're going to make their mind work harder and smarter. When I've done this with kids, they don't have any problem. They immediately start to see solutions like using a ladder for monkey bars, which they've probably played on, or use it for a bookshelf, or to cross over an opening in the earth, or a trainer. The kids are amazing. They'll start to look and go, oh my God, I could use this so many ways. And right, Jonathan. Jonathan's on it here. He's monkey bars. Yeah, and that's the next baby step. So you see how we're progressing here? Took an item like a ladder. We locked in on its normal use, climb up to the roof. Now we extend that ladder's use into other domains. Now we alter the ladder. Now we're getting more creative now. We've got an altered ladder and force them to find uses for it. Now, a sideways ladder is a modest modification. You could, at this point, once your kid wants to be more challenged, do something like really alter the ladder. Like, say it's a ladder with every third rung missing, or it's a ladder that has the rungs, instead of going this way, they're angled. I just thought of that. I mean, and challenge your kid to take that kind of altered ladder and think of a use for it. Boy, if they do that, they've got that creative groove you're building into them. And then explain to them that really is the secret to creative thinking. It's taking something around you, altering it in some way, not really sure why you altered it that way. That's pretty important. And then finding a creative use for it. I found third, fourth, fifth grader, they do this extremely well. Adults do too, of course, because they have more world knowledge, but the kids have no problem with this type of thinking. It's fun for them. But as their teacher of creativity, walk them through these steps systematically, as I'm doing with you. From the ladder to the roof, from the sideways ladder, from the ladder to the roof, from the ladder to other domains, like would you use it in the kitchen? Could you use it at school? The sideways ladder, and then something really altered, a ladder with rungs that are angled, or a ladder with, it's blue on one side and red on the other side. I don't know. You make it up, and then challenge them to have some fun with it, like a game, to come up with something creative. You're promoting the act of creativity, the sudden collision of two previously unrelated themes, and then making it, forcing them to make it valuable. Pretty cool. That's it. The old adage, don't try this at home. No, definitely try this at home. Do this at home. This is what it's all about. So let me turn my attention to what you as a parent can do to just instill some good habits of creativity. And the first habit really is this idea of pattern spotting. What I mean by that is this. Once you've had this lesson, or this experience, exposure with your child on the definition of creativity, the difference between problems and solutions, this idea of working backwards from the solution to the problem, once you're pretty satisfied they have that ability to think in that direction, and they understand this idea of creativity as a mashup of two things, now challenge them and say, every day I want you to find one example of something you see in the world that is an example of this mashup. They're everywhere. They won't have any problem unless they just don't try. But if they try, what they'll see is these creative examples are all over the place. They're in the car, they're at school, they're online, in stores, they're in stores, they're out on the street, in toys, they're everywhere. And so try to, and you play along with them. You know, when you see something, let's say you're going down the highway and you see a billboard with something creative on it, which is, by the way, a good place to see creative things, and see if they find it creative and why it's creative. Can they spot the underlying mashup? What two things were mashed together to bring that to life? Because pattern spotting will do a couple things. It'll reinforce to them that creativity is all around them. It'll reinforce to them the notion of how creativity is just the mashup. It'll stimulate their little minds to to do more of the same. You better be careful what you create here. You're going to create a monster of creative thinking, and they're going to just flood you with lots of ideas. Wouldn't that be fun? You don't want to shut off those little minds, right? You want to tap into them and have them live a more creative life. What a gift you can give them. So pattern spotting, definitely a technique that I teach to adults. I practice it. I see something creative and I look and go, why? Oh, wow. What's that all about? Here's another good habit. Let's say they come to you and they say, I need to generate some ideas around something like their play set out in the backyard, or the doghouse, or a toy that they have, or something at school. A good first step in creative thinking is to break things into components. Get used to this idea of breaking things into components and make a numbered list. Because what that'll do is it'll help their mind open up a little bit more to mashups. So instead of mashing up the whole thing, they might take just one piece of it and bring something in and mash it up. Combine it together. So breaking things into components has a lot of value. We do this a lot in creativity workshops with adults. It's just a good habit to get into. I've done it with teams on a complex project or even a simple project. And they'll look and go, oh my God, I've never seen my product that way. For the first time, they're able to kind of conceptualize their product in a new way just by breaking it into components. And I mean, not every little tiny component. So if you were working on a television set, it would just be the major components: the screen, the speakers, the remote control, the stand, the frame, the inputs, the things you can generally see and touch, but not every little screw and washer and things like that. Break things into components. Good habit to get into. This one is a great one. I do it. Keep an idea notebook. Now, there's a very practical reason for that, as well as a good teaching lesson for that. Writing is a technique of reflection. Reflection is a critical piece to learning. They write it down, and they also are challenged to generate new ideas, to look back and relearn from what they did and kind of keep score and have fun. But now when you have them do an idea notebook, buy them a little notebook and ask them to, write the idea down and ideally try to draw it. Draw it in a way that they think it would work. And they should sign their name to it and date it, put a date on it. Because, by the way, this is exactly what companies and engineers and people in the invention space do. They keep what's called a lab book. And it's important for protecting that idea. The patent attorneys will want to see what's called your lab book to establish the date of invention, the date of discovery, or I forget the legal term for it. So get your kid in the habit of signing their little name to it it's kind of a cool thing, like, hey, this is my idea. I have stacks of these things back here. After every keynote speech around the world, I would go back and write down ideas that came out from the group or I had. So fun to see what people come up with when they apply structured techniques. And then finally, reinforce to them, hey, that was a good idea, but also remember to think from the solution back to the problem, the sideways ladder back to some new use to it, or use some other example with them. So they're always thinking that there's two directions of creativity here. Okay, so that is what I wanted to cover with you. I wanted to just kind of leave you with a quick story. And before I do, just a quick reminder of next week, next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be live here on LinkedIn Learning Office Hours. The topic is cause-related marketing, how to make the world a better place. It's a fun topic. And no matter what part of a business you work in or what industry you work in, this is something you ought to understand. This is a good growth strategy. It's a reputation building strategy, a brand building strategy. I hope you can join me for that. So I want to end with a quick story about a time I was teaching kids creativity. And I had a group of, I think a little bit older, like 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I think my son at the time was in that grade, and this was his class. So I taught these kids structured creativity, just the way I teach it to adults, a little bit simpler, but pretty much the same. And the final exam on the last day of the last class, I had them for 5 classes. I told them I would give them a product that they didn't know ahead of time. And then they had to take that product and apply one technique and create some new to the world product. Kids. And to be honest with you, at that point in my life, I wasn't really sure if this would work. So it was an experiment. Well, I remember walking in and I sent the kids up to the whiteboard. I walked around and I passed out items to the kids. I gave one kid a regular, just a wire coat hanger. I gave another kid a flashlight, a pair of sneakers, a watch, just stuff. Each kid had their own item, and then they had to take that item and generate creative ideas, some new to the world invention. Well, after 30 minutes, I walked around. We got around one kid at a time. Each kid had to present their idea. I go to the first little girl, and she had the coat hanger. And I said to her, okay, what did you invent? Now, this is just a regular wire, simple coat hanger. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how would you invent something out of a coat hanger? And she used what's called the attribute dependency technique. And she said to me, oh, I've invented a new coat hanger that expands or contracts depending on the size and weight of the garment you're hanging on it. And I said, okay. I was completely blown away, laughing inside because it just was so cute, this little girl. I went to the next little girl. She had a kid's sneaker, tennis shoe. And I said, what did you invent? And she used the division technique. She said, I invented a shoe that expands as your foot grows. And she goes, oh, but I have another one too. A shoe that you remove the sole of the shoe and you replace it with different things, like if you're dancing or bowling or it's raining or snowing, you put different soles on the shoe. And right on down the line. It was just great. Funniest thing I ever experienced. And I knew right there that this had potential. In fact, Jacob Goldenberg, my friend and co-author now, we're talking about how do we get high schools to really embrace this now. We teach this at the university level. It's taught in many universities. Why isn't this being taught in grade school, middle school, and high school? So the other experience I had, and I'll make this quick, but I had a chance to teach really little kids, third graders, the really small ones that they're so funny, they're so cute. But this one kid, I'll never forget, his name was Sam. And I had given him this big umbrella. Here we go again, umbrellas. It was this big bright red umbrella from the University of Cincinnati. And I said, Sam, which technique do you want to use? He said, I think I want to use the multiplication technique. I said, okay. How does it work, Sam? He says, well, I have to take a part of it, make a copy, change it in some way. Very good. Let me see you do it. He says, well, I'm going to take the handle, I'm going to make a copy of it and put it up on the spike. So you have a handle here and a handle here. I'm scratching my head and I'm thinking, I don't see how that's going to work out. I said, okay, Sam, so you have a handle here on the umbrella, a handle here. What good would that be? What's the use of that? And he thought about it, and he thought about it. He's scratching his head, and he goes, oh, Mr. Boyd, I know. He says, if you're out in a windy day and the wind blows your umbrella out, you just turn it around and grab the other handle, and you're ready to go. I was laughing so hard. So here's the book that Jacob and I wrote. It's a bestseller in 19 languages now. It describes this method that I'm talking about to today, and has some of these stories for children. So if you wanted to dive deeper in this would definitely be the book. So I'm going to look over at the questions here. I see Pete McNally, my old friend Pete. Hey, Drew, enjoyed the presentation. Lots of good pearls for helping my 6 and 8-year-old. One thing it reminded me is that kids think differently. I'll put it up on the screen here. My son is on the spectrum and has exceptional creativity and problem solving. The creativity habits will be helpful. Thank you. Yeah, you bet. Jonathan Offer, I recognize your name. You were on the live stream from Dubai. Do you have a key takeaway experience from your Dubai trip that you could share? I do, as it relates to children. I was really impressed with the World Expo in Dubai and how serious their society takes innovation. They're all about innovation. Because you remember, Dubai is a city that was just built out of the desert with money from oil. But that business model is going to run out eventually. We're going to be less dependent on oil. They're going to run out of it in the ground, perhaps. So they know that, and they're doing everything they can to prepare that economy, that political economy, to be more innovative on all fronts and be a center for it. I'm pretty sure they're going to get there. So that's what I learned from being in Dubai. They're serious about it. They're investing. They're helping others. It reminds me of Singapore. You know, Singapore has a similar mindset as a nation state. So that's one thing. Thanks, Jonathan, for being back. And I'll leave you with one final little graphic here. This is a thank you note from one of the little kids. Dear Mr. Boyd, thank you for teaching us about innovation. I didn't know that you could start with a solution. I like to think inside the box. Thanks, Julia. Look, you can only have fun with this, right? I hope you take these lessons. Feel free to stay in touch with me too if I can be of any help to you, give you some ideas. But you do have a critical role. We know the parents have to do more and can do more than what the classrooms are doing, than what the classrooms are doing today. And so get in there, make it work, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.